Welcome to Learning Partner. So in this video we are going to see basic CRUD operation. Okay, and that CRUD operation we are going to see with model pop-up. So as you can see, this is the normal list, and on the click of add button you get to see this model pop-up. Okay, so we are going to use the bootstrap model pop-up only. So let's see, I have just created the basic HTML. In the table you can see we have the checkbox also. Okay, so if we see, once we click on the header checkbox, that is to select all the rows. Okay, so it is not getting selected, but once we do the implementation, once we check the checkbox on the top, all the rows will be selected, and once we uncheck, all the rows will be unselected. Okay, on click of edit, same record we will edit, and on click of remove, we are going to remove the same record. Okay, so this will cover all the basic for CRUD operation. Now let's see, and one more thing, we are going to store the data into the local storage. Okay, so let's see the implementation. So this is the normal HTML I have created. As you can see, bootstrap card I have been using, that is again from the bootstrap. Then I have one button, that is add student. On this button click, I have a click event, that is on add student. Okay, now if on the page bottom we have a model. See, this is the bootstrap model. The bootstrap model has a ID, that is student model. Okay, now if we go to the function in add student, what we have done, first we have selected that particular div, means model div, using document.getElementById. Okay, then we have just added a null check. Then that whatever the div we have selected, we are adding just dynamic style, that style.display.block. So if we make that div, if we add that style block to that div, that model will be visible. Okay, and in the bottom function on close model, you can see just I have added the property display is equal to none, so the model gets hidden. Okay, this is the simple implementation for the model. Okay, now next thing, we have the form also. So it's in the form, you can see full name is there, mobile is there, then email ID is there, and the address is there. So we have to create object which we will bind over here with the ng model. So to use the ng model in our app module, we need the form control. Let's see the app module. To use the ng model, we need the form module in our import statement. Okay, this should be present, then after only you can use the ng model. Okay, let's go back to .ts. Okay, so as you can see, we need one array where we will store all the student list. Okay, then we will need one object which we will bind to the form. So as you can see, student is our object, and in that object we have 4 fields, that is full name, mobile, email. Email spelling is wrong, email. Okay, then address is there. So after address we don't have any more fields, so we don't need that comma. Okay, so this is the simple object. Now let's bind this object to our form using square bracket, banana bracket, that is for the ng model. Square bracket, then round bracket, then ng model, make sure m is capital, equal to, then our student dot our field name, student dot full name. Okay, same like this we have to bind remaining properties also. This is for email, this is for address. Let's change the field names, address and mobile. Okay, so our form is getting binded properly. Let's say if you want to initialize form with some default value, so that also we can do. We just have to initialize, provide some value in the empty. As we have created the object, we have initialized that with empty. Instead of that, we can provide any value. Just let's say demo. Okay, now if we save and check, once we click on add, you can see that same value is being automatically pre-populated. Okay, so if you have need like some values should be automatically pre-populated, so you can assign that when you initialize the object. Okay, let's go back to the component. Okay, let's make it empty. Now next thing is, right, on the save button we have to save the form data into array. First we have to save the form data, and save means we have to push the form value into the array, then we will store that array to the local storage. Okay, so on the form we have a save student function. So you can see we have a save student function. Like on that, either we can send the user form also, or we have the data in, we since we have bind the form with ng model, so we can directly use. Okay, so here what we need to do, we have an array that is this dot student list student array dot push. It's an array, so we can push what we have to push, this dot student. Okay, then just let's see, add the debugger and see it in action. Now we are adding the element to the student array. Let's use the student array on the table also with ngfor. So now we have the static tr. Instead of that, we will make it dynamic. Let's just remove everything. Yeah, star ngfor is equal to let item of our array variable name, that is student array. Now instead of this static text, we have to just make it dynamic. Item dot. In student array we have the array of objects, so we can use dot operator to specify particular value. Then name, full name, then mobile, email, and address. Okay, now just let's remove the remaining static trs. Okay, let's save all and check it. Okay, so now you can see in the table we don't have any records for now. Let's click on the add new. Let's one more thing, whenever we are developing now, it's better to add a debugger and check what code is there. Okay, so for to check the debugger we need the console on. Let's add some values. Some address. Okay, now on click of save, that our save function will be triggered. So as you can see, if you hover on the this dot student, so you can see whatever the data we have filled in the form, that you can see over here. Now if we see the student array, currently in student array we don't have any record, but once this line execute, we will push this record into the student array. Let's do the F10 one more time. So now if you see the student array, you can see one record. Now if we continue, in the background you can see record is being added. Okay, let's close the model. So here you can see model is being added. So now if you refresh, that data will be vanished because we haven't stored that data in the local storage. Okay, so next thing, we have to store the data into the local storage. Once we add the record, one more thing we can do, once we add, we can close the model pop-up also. So we have a separate function to close the model pop-up, that we can call, that is on close model we can call once we push the element to the student array, so that once we save the record, model will be automatically closed. Okay, now after closing the model, we have to store the data, means array, into local storage. So local storage, we can make use of the, we have some method like set item. To set item we have to use two parameters, first is the key and second is the value. Okay, so key, let's say student list, this is the key which we are going to use. And then while storing the data into local storage, we have to convert the data into the string format, so we have to use json.stringify. Make sure json is capital, dot stringify, and inside stringify we have to pass the array object, array variable, this dot student array. Okay, now just let's see how it how it gets stored into the local storage. If we go to the application, here you can see local storage. Now I have some existing values. Let me remove that. Okay, so currently in local storage we don't have any data. Okay, now if we try to save, let's click on save, F10 again. Now once we run this line, once we call this function, the model will be automatically closed. See, model got closed, and then we are storing the data to the local storage. On click of continue. Now let's go to the application and see, in the student list we have got the array. Okay, now if we refresh, still we won't be able to see the data, because what we have did is we have just stored the data, but on the page load we need to read that data also, and then we have to store that data into our array. So on the page load, so we have a lifecycle event of the component, that is ng on init. Okay, so here we can read the data from the local storage. So const local data. So we are just creating a local variable using const to store to read the data, local storage dot get item. Okay, so while storing the data in local storage, we have stored into student list key. So we just have to pass the same. Then we can add an additional check, like if it is not null, if local data is not null, if we don't have anything data present, so it will throw the error. So we can check like if local data is not equal to null, then we just have to assign whatever the data there was in the local storage to our array variable. This dot student array is equal to local data. Now remember, like while storing the data into the local storage, we have stored the data into string format. Okay, now if you can see, string is not assignable to any type, so we have to convert the string type of data to array of object. So we just have to use json.parse method. json.parse, again json will be capital only, parse. To convert the object to string, we have to use string, you have to use the stringify, and to convert it back to the object, we have to use parse. Okay, now if we save, let's just add a debugger and see. It's better to see like how code is working. So just by adding the debugger, we get to see like what data we are getting. Okay, now F10 one more time. So now if you hover on the local data, you can see the data is in string format. See, it is enclosed in the double quotes, so it is in a string format. Then we have to convert that into the proper array. So F10, now in the student array, you can see proper array format data is there, and that array we have used on the table, so that data you can see. Let's try to add one more record. Then we will see edit and the delete one. So for that only purpose, we are adding one or two records. Let's add one more. Now you can see on click of add also, again we are getting the same data. So for that you need to clear the object. Let's go back and clear the object. Once you do the add now, you can initialize the object again. This object again you can initialize after adding, so that form will be reset. This dot student is equal to, we are just initializing the values. Okay, so let's save and check it now. So now you won't get, once you click on add, again if you open the same model pop-up, you won't get the same data visible. Let's try to add some and close the model pop-up, close the model pop-up, close the model pop-up. Now if you open again, see, you are not able to see that previously filled data. Okay, now let's see the edit and the delete. Okay, so while editing, what we have to do, first we have to read the data from that array and assign it back to that our object. Okay, so let's create a method on that button click. So you can see I have created on edit function with a parameter. So click event will be there. and we have to pass the complete object, that is item. Same like that we can just okay, now let's go to the edit function. So on the edit function, let's add a debugger first. So I will show you like what data we get, because we are passing the current item ngfor item instance, and that means we will get the complete student object, that we will assign it back to the student object. So after the debugger, let's add the whatever the data we get from the front end to the student object. So this dot student object is equal to stud, that is the parameter. Okay, let's just check it on the debugger. Okay, once we click on edit, so here you can see if you hover on the stud, that is a parameter, we can see complete object is there. Let's try to see on the object what do we have. This dot student. Okay, currently it is empty, but once we run this line, you can see the data into student. Now if you check, okay, so same data you can see over here. Okay, so same data you can see in the student. Now what we have to do, we just have to open the model pop-up, because we have the object ready, so we just have to open the model. So we already have a function which is responsible to open the model pop-up, that is add student function, okay, which will open the model pop-up. Let's see it now. Once we click on the edit, let's try to edit the second record. Okay, on click of continue. See, continue. You can see the same record, you can see already filled up. Okay, now the thing when we are working with the local storage, now we have to insert something unique into our array of object. Let's say student ID or something, so that we can remove the existing record and update the latest one. Okay, so for that, let's add an okay, so for that we can insert one more ID, that is student ID, which will be unique to all the records. Let's initialize it to 0 semicolon. Okay, so once we add the record, while adding the record means on save student, we just have to increase the we just have to append student ID dynamically. So this dot student, before pushing the record, we just have to add the student ID. Student ID is equal to, so now I said like student ID should be dynamic, so we can unique, so we can get the length of the array plus 1. So this dot student array dot length plus 1, length plus 1. So every time one unique ID will be inserted to the student ID. Okay, so this we won't show on the table, but we will use it in the purpose of edit. Okay, let's initialize back it to the 0 in the object. Okay, so when we click on the edit, now we have to read the particular when we do the update. Now if we see, let's save it. If we open the add model, we get the save button only. If we click on the add student, we get the save button. Now let's cancel it, and if we click on the edit button also, still we get the save button. But in this case it is update now, because we are editing the existing record, so this should be a update. So we can do that using the student ID. Now first we have to remove all the record, because those records doesn't have the student ID. So let's clear the local storage. Okay, now let's reload and add one more record. Now we will get a student ID which will be unique to all the record. Okay, now you can see in the object student ID 1 is there, because what we have did array length plus 1. So array was 0, so plus 1 is 1. Let's try to add one more. Let's make it something proper name. On click of save, so here you can see student ID 2 is there. Okay, so we have got 2 record. Okay, so now once in the HTML, in the model pop-up, we just have to make that button dynamic. So either we can create one more button. Let's copy paste this button and use ngif to hide and show the other button. Now for other button, what we have to do, if if the student ID, student.student ID is equal to 0, means we have to show the edit button. So we have to use ngfor here. In case of add, we have the student ID as 0. Student.student ID is equal to 0. So if it is 0, we will show the save button, and if it is not equal to 0, we will show the update button, that is second button. Let's change the text to update. And for update, we will create one more function, that will be update student. Let's create this function as well. Okay. Let's save all and check it. Now if we edit any record, so we will get the update button. Okay, so you can see edit button, and if we click on the add, okay, so now one more defect we have got. On click of add, again we need to initialize that object. So what things we have did, yeah, this object also be present in the add student model. Okay, let's see now. So whenever we are opening the model, we should initialize our object. Okay, now let's click on edit. You can see the what happened. Let me check again. So the mistake was we have called add student after we assign the record. So first we need to call the add student here, so that first model pop-up will be visible. Then in model pop-up, we will initialize the object with 0. Then we will assign the value. Okay, now it will work fine. Let's check it. Let's click on the edit first. Okay, now click on cancel. On add student, you can see empty and button is saved. Okay, so now on the update, what we have to do. So once since we are dealing with the local storage, we can remove the existing record and we can add the latest record. So that is kind of update thing, or otherwise we can change the existing record as well. Okay, let's try to do change the update existing record. Okay, so on click of update, in the update function, what we have to do, first we have to read the value from the array. Okay, so that will be constant record is equal to this dot student array. Now we have the student ID, right? We have the student ID in the current model pop-up. With that student ID, we have to read the particular record from the student array. So we have to use dot find. Okay, here we have to specify the condition m equal to greater than, that is lambda expression dot student ID. We have to compare with student ID equal to this dot student ID, because we have the student ID in the student object. Once we click on the edit, ID student. Okay, so after this we just have to update the record. Then record dot full name is equal to this dot student dot full name, this dot record, yeah, record only, because what we have did, we have taken particular record from the array, then we are updating the values. Full name is equal to this dot student dot full name dot full name. Okay, let's see, and on click of update, again we have to close the model pop-up. So let's call this function and call it over here. Okay, so let's see, for now we are just updating the full name. Let's see if it is working or not. Okay, let's click on update. Okay, in case of education 2, let's try to change it something. On click of save. Okay, now if we refresh. Okay, one more thing, like we have added the updated record. Once in the add function we have stored, after the operation we have stored the data to the local storage. Same thing we have to do once we update also, because every time we are making any changes to the data, we need to store it back to the local storage. So same thing, this local storage.set item we have to add once we update also. Okay, now it will work. Let's save and check it. Let's rename it back. Okay, on click of update, and now if we refresh, you can see in the local storage you got the Mayuri name. Okay, so that is updated. This is update. So like that we have rename full name, like that you can change the mobile, email and address also. Okay, now let's see the delete one. For the delete we have to send the ID in the table. So on the delete we have to send the ID. Which ID we have to remove, means which record we have to remove. There is no need to send the complete ID, because we are going to just need the student ID, because that is unique in our array. Okay, let's change the parameter to ID. Now to remove the element from the array, we can make use of the splice. So let's write the for loop. Okay, so we have to use the for loop on this dot student array. Then first we have to find that particular element, so we can use if condition. If this dot student array of I, means particular all the for loop elements, square bracket I dot student id equal to id, whatever we have got in the parameter. If it is same, then we have to splice particular for loop instance record. So this dot student array dot splice, then I in bracket, then we have to specify I, that is the which, I mean from for loop which particular index we have to remove, then how many records. So we just have to remove the one, so comma 1. Okay, so let's add a debugger in the for loop, and then we will see like how it is happening. Let's add a debugger. Let's save all. Let's try to remove the second record. Okay, I think debugger is not on. Let's try to add one more record, then we will see. Continue. Okay, now if we click on the remove of the sham, so you can see we have the for loop. So first you can see I is 0. Now in student array of I, in student id we have 1, but current id is 2, which we have got from the parameter, because we have clicked on the second record, so it is not equal to 2. So then continue again. So now condition will satisfy. Now it will go inside, because current student ID is also 2 and the parameter we have got is also 2. So that is the current record. So it will go inside and it will remove the particular record. Okay, continue. Okay, so what if you refresh, still you will be able to see the old record, that is RAM, because we haven't stored the updated record to the local storage. Okay, so that we need to do. So after the for loop, again we have to store the record to the local storage. So same thing, local storage dot, yeah, the same thing we have to use after the for loop. Okay, so because after all the operations are, I mean for loop has completed its operation, we will again store the latest array to the local storage. Let's save it and check it. Let's close the console. Okay, currently we have 2 records. Let's try to add one more. Okay, let's click on save. Let's try to refresh if we can still see the same record. Yes, now let's try to remove the middle one. Okay, let's try to refresh. Okay, so you can see middle record has been updated. Okay, next task was, if we check the first checkbox, we have to select all the rows checkboxes also. So for that, let's create one more variable which we will bind to the uh, header checkbox. It's select all. It's select all, that will be boolean. Let's make it by default false. Okay, let's bind this with the ng model to the top checkbox that is in the table header. Okay, then we need to write an event on change of this event. So ng model change event we can write ng model change event, that will be on check all. Function name you can give anything, but it's, since it is purpose is on check all. Let's try to create that. Okay, so on check all, if the current value is checked, so we have to check all the records. Okay, so now to check all the record, first we have to bind that record with same ng model on the, just write the ng model here. Now we have to bind this ng model with item.isChecked. Item.isChecked. We will create, we will be adding this property dynamically. IsChecked. Okay. Now we have to make this property true if the above checkbox is selected, and if above checkbox is selected, we have to make all the properties in the student array to false. Okay. So we can use the for loop. Let's write a for loop here. Okay, for loop will be on the array this dot student array. Okay, so we have to change this dot student array of dot I, this dot student array of I dot is checked is equal to this dot, that is select all. And whatever, if it is checked, then we will assign true, otherwise false will be assigned here. So let's save and check it now. So let's check it now on the browser. If we check the checkbox from the top, you can see all rows are getting selected. If we uncheck, everything is getting unselected. Okay, so this is all the basic CRUD operation what we have performed with storing the data into the local storage. Okay, please do like and subscribe and tell me some of the more project ideas. I will try to create the videos on the same. Thank you.